Welcome to the A-Stab podcast. Drink a pint of live. It'll do us all some good. Welcome to the show. Are you a true crime junkie? If so, I want to take you to what I might consider the epic center for true crime. A town where, man, a lot of crazy things have happened there. So let's go 100 miles, approximately, to the north of Kansas City, up to the top left corner of the state of Missouri. And let's zoom down into that very small community of Skidmore. Now, Skidmore, Missouri is only a town of about 283 people as of the last census. So you'd think, being out there on the plains, that it would be relatively very quiet. But when you start to look deep into the roots of that town, you'll find out that it's really quite the contrary. This town is full of mystery, a town of vigilance, really. And I'm not here to tell you about each and every one of those events. However, I do want to tell you why Skidmore became famous or on the map. And that is the fact that they had a character who was super infamous named Ken McElroy. And McElroy very honestly earned the nickname, the Town Bully. In 1981, McElroy was convicted of shooting and seriously injuring a 70-year-old grocer there in Skidmore by the name of Bo Bowenkamp. Overall, he was indicted 21 times and seemed to have escaped each of those convictions, except, of course, his very last. So one morning, McElroy got up, got into his old Chevrolet pickup, and he cruised into town down that road that he's always coming in on, and he basically landed upon the crossroads of what you would consider the center block of Skidmore, more particularly a local bar named the D&J Tavern. And as he began to kill his engine on his pickup truck and open that left door to step out, the town surrounded him. And what I mean by the town, I'm actually talking about the fact that there were 30 to 50, the number's actually unknown, surrounded the vehicle. And as they surrounded him, they had decided the town had had enough. And before his feet ever even touched pavement, a long history of harassment had just ended in gunfire. They'd had enough of him. Crazy, crazy story. And of course, that you can find in a documentary that is called No One Saw a Thing, which is ironic because everyone saw everything. But the point is that even today, no one speaks of who those 30 to 50 people were, even though they know it. But no one knows and no one talks. And to this day, that still remains a mystery. But unbelievably, as a story as that may be, the fact is I'm not here to even talk about that story. What I want to do is fast forward to 2004, preferably around the time frame of late August, early September. And I want to go straight to a desktop computer and right inside to a chat room that was called Ratter Chatter. Now, this was a chat room basically involving many, many people who basically bred dogs, particularly the rat terrier. And it is here where we will meet our new subjects, particularly Bobby Jo Stinnett. Her and her husband were in their early 20s and they were expecting their first child. And it is in this chat room, the Ratter Chatter, that she will meet a girl by the name of Darlene Fisher. But the future will soon reveal that who she will really meet is a lady living under the alias of Darlene Fisher, but her real name is Lisa Marie Montgomery. Now, she'll soon be known not as county or state, but as a federal inmate by the number of 11072-031. Now, that just seems like a bunch of numbers, but we'll soon find out. This is a very important number, and it is the purpose of this podcast.
Nottoway County 911, what is your emergency? What's wrong? I'll get an ambulance started that way. Is she breathing?
That was a 911 call on December 17, 2004, as Becky Harper, which is Bobby Jo's mother, comes over and discovers her daughter laying in a pool of blood. Becky soon described that scene that she come upon as if her daughter's stomach had exploded. Now let's travel 177 miles south of Skidmore, Missouri, down into the state of Kansas, particularly the town of Melbourne. This is where Lisa Montgomery is from.
The folks here in Melbourne say Lisa Montgomery was a newcomer to them. She'd only been here a couple of years and pretty much kept to herself.
Now, keep in mind that Bobby Joe from Skidmore met Lisa here in Melbourne online through that Ratter Chatter's chat room. And of course, it's from right here that this story turns for worse. It's around December 18th, and Lisa Montgomery shows back up in Melbourne, Kansas, but she has a surprise with her.
She showed up in town showing off her new baby, popping in and out of stores all over Main Street.
And Kevin was just such a proud papa. Boy, he had a smile on his face from ear to ear, and he just was so happy.
Wait a second. Kevin, Lisa's husband, thinks that's his baby? She just showed up in town, and all of a sudden it's his? This is when you start thinking, wow, he's totally off his rocker. But then we've got to remember, Lisa was diagnosed with something called pseudocyesis. And basically what that is she fools people around her into thinking that she's pregnant. I don't know if it's for attention or whatever, but however, she has been diagnosed with this and has had a history through the 90s of actually practicing this.
But soon the truth would be obvious. Lisa fooled everyone, including her own husband.
That was a precious baby.
The baby, whom Lisa named Abigail, wasn't Kevin's. She wasn't Lisa's. She was the tiny life cut too soon from Bobby Joe Stinnett's butchered body.
So after many, many years of falsifying pregnancy, I guess Lisa was determined that one way or another, she was going to have a baby.
Montgomery came to that house with a rope, a knife, and she had purchased some clamps for when she delivered the baby.
Now remember, Bobby Joe and her husband were dog breeders. So Lisa, meeting her in that chat room, shows up at Bobby Joe's front door there to basically buy a dog. Once she's invited inside, she attacks Bobby Joe, begins to strangle her. Now here's what's crazy. When they did the forensics, they found that Bobby Joe had Lisa's hair wrapped up into her fingers, and that the bottom of her very own shoes was covered in her own blood, meaning that she kicked as Lisa began to cut from her womb this baby. So that's very briefly this story, without a whole lot of details, and there's a lot to it actually. But let's fast forward to October 26, 2007. This is where it's the last day of her trial. She's found guilty. And of course, the jury recommends the death sentence. Now, of course, like many cases, this has a lot of controversy surrounding it. Why? Because Lisa grew up in a home that was extremely abusive. But remember, she also had this ability to always pretend she was pregnant. So they used that as part of her line of defense. But of course, that was second. Her first defense was the fact that she accused her brother of this murder and kidnapping. Now, when she did that, her family turned on her. They had nothing to do with her anymore, and they sure were not going to support her in the fact that she was diagnosed, but not really officially, with this term, pseudocyesis. Her brother had a solid alibi, and so that removed him from this entire even thought process of anything being linked to him. And her second line of defense, this mental issue that she has, didn't last very long either. And here she has found herself on death row. She was scheduled to die December 8th, 2020 by lethal injection, but something come up.
Today, a major development in a Skidmore murder case. Lisa Montgomery was supposed to be executed in a few weeks, but this afternoon, a judge delayed that execution. Our investigative reporter, Angie Ricona, has been tracking this case. We're going to go to her live now. Angie, what did the judge have to say? What happened exactly?
Well, this is because Lisa Montgomery's legal team has COVID. And so what the judge said is that she cannot have an execution.
Wait, what? COVID-19 is out there taking lives, and yet it has just saved one. So let's get to the present time. Lisa Montgomery, at the age of 52, is currently in Fort Worth, Texas, where she will remain until they transfer for her execution. Now, as for that baby, today, in fact, it's now December 2020, she just turned 16. Her name is Victoria Jo Stinnett. After authorities recovered her, they returned her to her dad. And he's raised her ever since, of course, with the help of various other family members on both sides, actually. She remains out of the public eye, and she'll graduate high school in 2023. But do you remember just earlier I told you that there was a very good reason why the federal number of 11072-031 was important? It's not only because that number is basically Lisa's name now, that big number, but more importantly, it's because on January 12th, 2021, we're just talking in a few weeks, that huge number of 11072-031 will simply be reduced to the number 4. But why the number 4? You see, in 1865, Mary Surratt died by hanging. In 1953, we had 2 federal executions, one of Ethel Rosenberg by the electric chair and the other of Bonnie Heady by the gas chamber. And now, January 12th, 2021, we will have Lisa Marie Montgomery die at age 52, making her only the 4th woman to ever be federally executed by the United States government. And there you have it. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening. It's appreciated.